Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, California Weather Watch. Today's January 13th, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. We got the state of California right here. You can see some dry air moving down across the region. We've got some northerly winds aloft. It's going to carve out this trough here. This is going to develop some offshore winds. The ridging is going to allow for some higher pressure to get across the Great Basin, and we are going to be dealing with these offshore winds through the next few days at least. And we'll take a look at the extended forecast. We'll try to see if there's any precipitation in store for California. We'll take a look at some other interesting statistics here as well. And with what we just looked at, you can kind of see this trough carving down. It's going to generate this cutoff low that's going to remain too far away to help California with any precipitation chances. But at the same time, you can kind of see the offshore winds even at 18,000 feet there. And we're going to keep these offshore winds going through the next few days. We're going to have some critically high fire danger. There's a particularly dangerous situation yet again for Southern California, and these winds are going to affect a little bit different locations versus last time. For example, the Palisades fire, some of these high winds are going to be off to the west, so any kind of a spark that starts any kind of fire activity out there could be affecting different areas. I know it's not what anybody wants to hear, but we'll go over some of those details here in a moment. And if we take a look here, this is the GOES mesoscale floater. So if you notice, this is updating every single minute. Technology, GOES 18 satellite imagery. You can see the Mount Shasta is right there, and we got some higher terrain snowfall. You can see the glorious snow across some of the higher terrain of the Sierra Nevada, but really not much in the way of any clouds elsewhere across California. And you can see the marine layer largely absent from the coastal areas as well as we carve this trough out and we keep the offshore winds going. And don't shoot the messenger here, but check out climate.gov if you want to check out the latest from NOAA. 2024 was the warmest year on record, and you guessed it, the previous warmest year was last year here. So check that out if you want to remain up to date on the latest of the science regarding that. Now, taking a look here at over 40,000 acres, 13 confirmed fatalities. I believe it's up towards 16 or even higher right now, but a lot of structures destroyed. And if we scroll in a little bit here, you can see where the Palisades fire and where the Eaton fire was. And again, some of these winds are going to be affecting areas east. So the Palisades fire could even be, brought back to life for a time, and we could be looking at some winds getting out a little bit further west, which would mean fire danger further west as well. So keep that in the back of your mind here. More on that here in a moment. And I get a lot of questions about what weather station I recommend. Well, this is a great one, the Tempest Weather System. It's got a great smartphone app. I selected a random station out here. Looks like Lucerne Valley is right there. And look at how chilly it was this morning. Look at some of these temperatures down into the teens. Look at that, 19 degrees, and yeah, pretty chilly out there across some of the wind-sheltered areas. If we bounce back out, you can kind of see how we've cooled down with some of that colder air over the interior areas making its way down in towards Southern California for some places here. So yeah, great weather station. Click on that link to save 10%. Now, taking a look here, we got this moderate sneaker wave risk. This goes on in through, I would just consider this all the way on and through Wednesday coming up here. But just a reminder, if you go out towards the beach areas, don't leave your children and your pets out in the surf zone. Don't turn your back on the ocean. You guys know the drill. So wind forecast today through Tuesday AM. Southern California, not the only place it's going to be gusty. Again, the winds out of the north and northeast here coming across some of the higher terrain of the Sierra Nevada. So blustery conditions, not the extreme damaging winds that Southern California has been getting, however. And if we take a look at the Bay Area here, we got some coastal flood advisories, we got frost advisories, there's some freeze warnings for interior areas as well. It does include Merced, just outside of Fresno there. And you can see the wind advisory that's in effect through Tuesday morning, mainly for higher terrain there, 2 a.m. Monday through 10 a.m. on Tuesday, some gusts up to 55 again for the higher terrain. And if we take a look a bit further south, so San Diego doing a good job here, showing just how low the relative humidities will be, and we got the red flag warnings all over the place. We got some high wind warnings again for the Santa Ana winds coming. I'll show you those here in the weather models in a moment, but this was issued again by Los Angeles, the National Weather Service. Particularly dangerous situation, red flag warnings. This goes all the way on and through New Wednesday. So the next 3 days, do not do anything that could spark a fire. Multiple ways to receive evacuation information. And Again, as I mentioned before the last round of fires, you cannot count on a firefighter being able to save you when these fires develop. The conditions are too dramatic. It doesn't matter how much water you have when the winds are blowing 45 to 70 miles per hour in tinder, dry conditions. You are not going to be able to put out these fires. And I know that you hear, these random stories about sometimes people on the fringes of some of these fires. Hey, they stayed around and they used their garden hose to try to tamper down the flames, and their house survived. But that is going to end up killing people, folks, because as you saw, some of the swaths with very expensive homes across the Palisades completely gone, completely gone. All the swaths of homes are gone. There's nobody that could have stuck around and fought those fires with the hoses. I'm sure on the fringes of some of those fires, some of that may be the case, but that is the exception, not the rule. Do not stick around and try to fight these firestorms. Get out of there, because it will cost you your life. And taking a look at the red flag warnings, again, a very strong wording here. It shouldn't be as strong as last week's, but last week's was extremely exceptional. And this could be affecting different areas. Like I mentioned, places off to the west of the Palisades fire. Now, long-range spotting is at play here. So it's not just as simple as looking across the street and seeing a house on fire. Those embers are going to be flying at you, billions of these embers. And all it takes is one of them to catch fire. And there's simply no way you can fight all of these embers. Even with an entire battalion of firefighters, you'd have to stretch thousands of them across miles and along the entire perimeter of the fire and downwind here. So I hope I'm making myself clear. I don't want people thinking that you can sit at home with a garden hose and fight these fires. It is simply just not the case. It is very much the exception, not the rule. Now, taking a look here, you can see the precipitable water, and look at just how dry this atmosphere is. This is just absolutely ridiculous. And you can see this dry air flowing off the continent. There is that cutoff low. You can see it's a bit more moist, but it is absolutely no help to Southern California as we continue this offshore flow through Tuesday. Here we go on and through Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning as well. So yeah, we have 3 days at least of strong offshore winds and potentially some more coming in the future. I'll show you that here in a moment. But if we look at low relative humidities, or actually just relative humidity, but some of them are quite low across the area, you can kind of see the diurnal and the nocturnal cycle. Here we go through the day on Tuesday in just bone dry conditions. You can see all the dry air flowing out over the Pacific Ocean with the cutoff low way off to the south and west. And then we go through Wednesday again, another very dry day for Wednesday also, as you can see as we go through Wednesday afternoon. Now, taking a look at the North American model, 925 millibars, about 2,500 feet up in the atmosphere. So here we go through this morning. You see the strong winds across all the desert areas. And if you notice something here, I'll probably actually do a video of this maybe later today on what just actually drives these offshore winds and all the factors that come into play. Because as you can see some of these winds flying through the gap areas and through the mountain terrain and whatnot. And you see as we go all the way on through Tuesday, offshore flow continues. We go through Tuesday night until Wednesday, offshore flow just continuing for the next 60 hours at least. If we look at her high resolution rapid refresh, this goes 48 hours. Just going to scroll through this because this is just what I showed you here on the North American model, but models are in good agreement. What's in question right now is just how strong some of these individual wind gusts are going to be. So not only do you have the fire danger here, but you have some winds that could cause some damage also. And the European 925 millibars, it shows something similar. And this goes all the way on again through Wednesday, offshore winds. We scroll on in towards Thursday morning, still some offshore winds going on, but they do start to weaken and it starts to get a bit more onshore here. So that's good news, generally speaking. But at the same time, there's still fires going on that can kind of change things around and push flames in different directions and whatnot. So there's other problems that could come with that, but you definitely much rather them be onshore than offshore. And then as we go on in towards the weekend, this is Saturday afternoon, you notice some of this offshore flow starting to develop again. The GFS is not in agreement with that. I'll show you more on that here in a moment. But if we take a look here at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right, there is our initial trough being carved out here, high pressure setting up. The cutoff low too far away to provide any help. And then we scroll off into the future, and you'll notice that the European has a stronger jet stream, a bit more carved out to the west, allowing some more of that Arctic air and some higher pressure to get over the Great Basin. That would cause some additional offshore winds as we go into the weekend and through the following early portion of the week. You see the GFS weaker with those winds and a bit off further to the east. Now, if we take a look at the mean sea level pressure, you can see what is driving our offshore winds here for the next couple of days. Then we get a bit of a break as we go towards the end of the week, but then as we go towards next weekend, we'll be watching that high pressure. You're going to see that brown line marking the 1032 millibar line. These are isobars. These are lines of pressure. So this is higher pressure here, lower pressure here. The air wants to flow from high pressure to low pressure. And you see these offshore winds, and they're going to be more dramatic if the European verifies versus the GFS, weaker pressure gradient, and the high is definitely further north and the higher pressure off to the east. Versus Southern California. And this is actually driven by Arctic air. So if we scroll out far enough, you'll see this Arctic air mass settling down, mainly east of the Rockies, but you see more of that cooler air spilling out over into the Great Basin, which would help to generate an additional round of offshore winds. So we'll see which model wins out there. Hopefully the GFS is right. We don't bring additional rounds of offshore winds. Now, taking a look a little bit here at the extended forecast that the European Artificial Intelligence put this into motion, and yeah, I don't have much good to say about this. There goes that Arctic air moving off across some of the Great Basin, maybe, and mainly east of the Rocky Mountains. But as you can see, barely not even, I mean, you're talking about 264 hours out and not even one drop of rainfall for the state of California. Just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, now we're at 324 and there's been basically nothing, and then maybe a system skirts Northern California as we go on in through hour 330 plus. So that is not a good look here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this really quickly just to kind of show you the 15-day precipitation anomaly. You can kind of guess how that's going to look. And yep, big deficit here for the West Coast. And, you know, we're looking out kind of far, so the pattern still can change. We'll be checking back daily. This is the European deterministic model, and as you can imagine, this goes out 144 hours and not even a drop of rainfall as we go through next weekend. Now, daily 2-meter minimum temperatures, and again, you've been feeling this in the morning air if you're out and about in some of the valley areas, Southern California. You know, you don't need me to tell you, it's been pretty downright chilly out there. You can see some of these chilly conditions. That's why there are some freeze and frost warnings and advisories out there, and you can kind of see that chilly air hanging on. It is winter after all. Taking a look at daily 2-meter max temperature. This is for tomorrow, Tuesday. There's Wednesday, bounce back a little bit there. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So a little bit of a cool down coming as we go towards the upcoming weekend. Now, this is January so far this year, January 1st through January 12th. Look at the West, just above average. Some areas well above average. This is the actual mean temperature there. So, yeah. East of the Rockies getting all the fun with the cold air here. Yeah, but I'm glad somebody's getting some of this action here, and there's been some interesting snowfall events out there as well. But look at California, well above average so far for the month of January, including much of Nevada and Arizona, portions of Utah as well. Now, I've shared this here over the last couple of days, but this is the updated drought monitor. There's Los Angeles County, there's Orange County right there, and you can see San Diego County. We got Ventura County in Santa Barbara County. You got Kern County right there, San Bernardino. You've got Riverside, and you've got Imperial all the way out here. You can see Inyo County and portions of Mono County there as well. Mono, I think. Did I pronounce that wrong? I forgot. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, somebody fill me in the comments below. Here we go. You can see that we've got severe drought now across portions of Southern California. This was updated here a few days ago. And some pretty widespread moderate drought with some extreme up against the Arizona-California border. This is no doubt going to worsen if we continue with this rainfall deficit, especially with the offshore winds. Things are just extremely bone dry right now. And they give a nice discussion here as well. They do talk a little bit about the Santa Ana winds also. So if you want to check out the drought monitor, go ahead and do that. 6 to 10 day, this was issued yesterday, below average, just all across the West. 6 to 10 day, there's that Arctic air moving down. This is just percentage chance for below average. This doesn't mean, this is not a temperature forecast. This just means your chances of being below normal. And you can see some places pushing 80 to 90% chance of being below normal during this time frame here, as well as a lot of the West here. But definitely the bulk of that Arctic air looks like it's staying east of the Rocky Mountains. 8 to 14 day, pretty broad brush here across drops much to the lower 48 temperature wise. And there's that 8 to 14 day precipitation. Not much relief here, as you saw on the weather models, below normal here for much of California. Now, another problem with all the fires out here is that you have, some people want to say, hey, we need to trim out the vegetation across Southern California and we need to be out there thinning things and whatnot. But the flip side of that is if you do that, then when we flip back to the rainier pattern, you get mudslides here. So it's just one of the risks of living here in Southern California. You have to have the vegetation because you have to avoid the landslides and things like that. And do you really want a government official in your backyard telling you exactly what you can plant and how far it has to be from your home? Or do you want to just turn the entire area of Southern California into just a huge concrete jungle and pave all the hillsides and everything like that? So there's no solution that's going to make everybody happy and keep everybody safe. It is one of the risks of living here. You got fires, you got mudslides, and the Midwest, you've got tornadoes, you got hurricanes, and other portions of the USA, you got, cold weather and all kinds of stuff, so there's always risk no matter where you are. And no doubt we will eventually be going back through one of these whiplash events here where we've got burn scar areas and we're going to bring some very heavy rainfall and atmospheric rivers back into the West Coast. And then we're going to be dealing with landslides after these fires here. So that is one of the threats of living in California. Now, taking a look at the extended forecast here, we're going to scroll through. There's that cutoff low going through the ridge, hanging out at times. Inside slider action going on. And we look off into the extended, and there is an awful lot of ridging. But if we scroll far enough out, I'm now into early February, you can kind of see this is a pattern change. Some southwest flow trying to get back into California. That would be so welcome here, but hopefully we don't turn on the fire hose too hot and heavy at one time back into the state. But we'll just have to see how that trends. As you can see, there is some signal there for a pattern change as we go through February. So, cross your fingers for that. We're looking at tea leaves. We're desperate at this point. But anyway, hope you guys are liking the channel. Click like and subscribe. We will do this all again tomorrow and check back, and I will talk to you guys then.